All right. So, welcome to the first episode of the Millionaire's Mic. I'm so excited to announce our first guest, who's an Emmy Award winning writer, Emmy nominated director, Tony nominated producer, TV producer, an award winning theater director and choreographer, and owner of Everyday Dreams, a media production studio. So, without further ado, welcome Dani Davis to the Millionaire's Mic.
Thank you, Neha. I'm thrilled to be here with you. True.
I'm so excited to have you here with me and Tom. And I've had the privilege of knowing you for like the past, almost 7 years now. Like we kick this off. I just want everyone to know, like, not only is Dani like insanely accomplished, but she's also just like the most humble, brilliant, just selfless individual. And like always there to kind of give her time, and she's been a great mentor to me as well. So I'm very fortunate and very lucky to have you in my life. So
I feel the same way. I feel like you're a great mentor as well. I think
That's
that
very sweet.
transformational mentorship is a really powerful thing, and
yes, for
very
sure.
glad to know you.
So I guess we'll kind of like jump right on in with like obviously the amazing accolades that you already have. So why don't we kind of, I guess we'll start at the beginning. I know that you grew up in Massachusetts and you live in New York now. So let's go back to the beginning. Like how did you even jump into this world?
Excellent question. Yes, I did grow up in Massachusetts, and today I'm talking with you from my home on Cape Cod. And I would say that the origin story for me actually took place during my summers here on the Cape. My parents had us here every single summer, and I started to at that time, when I was a kid, there was a lot of theater that used to happen on Cape Cod in the summer, a lot of arts opportunities and things. And I just availed myself of all of them. And I grew up actually doing what was called summer stock theater on Cape Cod. And I would meet all of these people from New York. And it just, at a certain point, occurred to me that New York was where I was going to go. That's just basically what happened. So as I'm plotting my way forward as a teenager, I'm thinking I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to work on Broadway. I'm going to be a performer. I'm very interested in all of the creative process. And my dad actually was the person who said, totally love this for you. My parents were incredibly supportive. And he said, and just to be certain that this is the thing you want to do, I'm going to ask that you take 4 years off from your life in the theater. And I'm going to ask that you go to university and major in something that has nothing to do with the arts. And then if you want to go to New York on your graduation day from university, I'll drive you there. So, but I'm going to ask for 4 years. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, because I was about to ask you how it was back in the day, the vision that your parents or your close family had on this industry that is, even nowadays with all the social media, it's, I would say, easier. There is more competition, but easier to get in. I wouldn't believe back in the day, like 20 years, 30 years ago, would be like super hot to be like, yeah, sure, let's do that,
Yeah. And they were amazingly supportive. My parents were both teachers. And they were so much about education. And they were also all about following one's dreams. And basically, if the grades were there, I got to dive into my life in the performing arts as much as I wanted. And that was just sort of the way it went down in my home when I grew up. And so when my dad said, you're going to go to university, I was like, okay, great. Yes, of course, I'd always wanted to go to college, but the fact that he put those sort of guardrails around it, saying, and we're going to walk away from this for 4 years, right? Well, I can't tell you how incredible an experience that was. And my dad also was instrumental in helping me determine which university to attend. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that he said, as we were looking at the schools to which I'd been accepted, he selected the school that he said, this school is going to give you the network of people I can't.
Oh, okay. That's such a
How
like
about that?
that's
That's
such
very
a
smart.
beautiful perspective because I know like you went to Duke, obviously, but that's, in North Carolina. So I was gonna say like why I would have thought maybe you would choose a university in New York and just have a head start. Like, you know what, if you want me to go to school, like, okay, why not just put me in the city I already want to be in? So,
Mhm.
I guess that kind of makes sense of like, go to the place that has the network that, that's such a beautiful way to look at it.
Isn't that incredible?
No, I was like, it is because like there is this big saying like your network is your net worth, and the fact that your father understood that, and that he understood also that he has the humility to say, I didn't have that, so I want to give that for you. It's beautiful. It's the best gift ever.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more. And so, and the world being at Duke opened up an entire universe for me that
Mm-hmm.
I would not have given myself access to. And so I would say that the best part of being at Duke was that when I decided with intention and deliberation to go back into the performing arts after college, I went knowing what the rest of the world had to offer me as well. And I went knowing that the world was my oyster, that if I set an intention and there was something I wanted to make happen, it was going to be possible. And Tom, to your point, that network is your net worth, and the
Mm-hmm.
experience with people who are in all facets of life and industry, the diversity attendant to that is essential, I believe, to our success in life.
Yeah.
And that was the gift of university for me, was, that beautiful access to people who dreamed about doing all different kinds of things.
Yeah. And did that network at Duke help you to where you are today? Like, were they connections in, the theater world and in
No,
the performing arts
no,
world?
there were
Oh,
none. There were
different.
none. I was like, those of us who were like in the arts at Duke when I was at Duke, it was like, oh, are you sure? Wouldn't you rather like go be a consultant at Bain? You could go to law school. Law school would be great,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one, so few people, but I'll tell you something very interesting. Okay, so roll forward like 20 years or so. Suddenly, all of these graduates from Duke, my peers among them, myself among them, we're all like instrumental somehow in the entertainment industry. Like we're behind, we're running HBO, we're running Netflix, we're running Broadway, we're like running the entertainment industry. So Duke calls out to us and says, hey, you guys, let's make an entertainment media and arts network for for Duke, and so that you all can mentor the undergraduates. We all signed up. We were like, we'll be right there,
Oh
because
my
when we
God.
were trying to make all of that happen, it was like a desert. There was nary a Duke graduate, right, who was in our industry. They were like, good luck. And so for me, it was like I literally put my tap shoes in a suitcase and went to New York City after I graduated from
Oh
Duke
my
University. That's
God.
really what happened. I did not know a soul.
And
That.
I was the beginning of this new life in New York City, because now it's like easy because everything works for you and it's amazing, and once again congratulations. But I'm assuming that it was not always like beautiful. You had like bad moments and questioning
Oh,
yourself,
oh,
right?
you can hear
Well,
about a really bad moment? You ready for a
yes.
bad moment?
Share it with
Share with
us.
us.
Woo! Okay. Okay. So because I'd gone to Duke, okay, I had other skills beyond
Mm-hmm.
my, okay, so useful, so important, right? So for instance, I got to work on the development campaign for Jazz at Lincoln Center. I was sort of raising the early funds, for that campaign. I was able to do that. I was able to apply for what back then people would have called real jobs. So while I was auditioning for theater, I was doing these real jobs. But then there came to a point where I was getting called back so much for all these theater jobs that I
For
couldn't
being
work the
fantastic.
other jobs for doing well. But of course, I have no money, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not independently wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this 4-month span where I'm barely able to like like do these other jobs to make some money, and I keep getting called back for things. And back then they would give us sheet music, and we had to go take the sheet music to a coach who would work on the material with us. It all cost money, you know, and I was just watching my bank account drain and drain and drain.
Oh my God.
So at one point I thought, I got to do something. I need to do something. And so turned out that the Jim Henson Foundation needed someone to write this incredible grant for this specific project. And it needed to happen on a Friday night into a Sunday. I was like, I'm there. So, and I lived in the Far West Village at the time. And Jim Henson Foundation was on the Upper East Side. And this is instrumental to the story. Okay. So I go and I work on the Friday night, and I get out of there at like 11:45 at night, really late. And it's cold. It's sort of March. And I go to the bank machine to get money because I don't have any tokens left. We had tokens to drop into the subway turnstiles at the time. I don't have any tokens left. I'd used my last token to get up to the Upper East Side, and so I went to the bank machine to get cash so I could purchase a token. And I didn't have $5 in my bank account. So I had something like $3 in my bank account, and I had no money, and it was 11:45 at night, and it was freezing cold. I was like, oh, this is a low moment. Oh boy, I feel really bad about myself right now. Oh my God. You know, like I was like, okay, you're doing everything you can do. I was talking to myself saying, just try not to go that dark. You know what I mean? Like, let's just try to like stay a little bit above the surface right now so you can safely get home. And I walked all the way home, and I got home.
You walked home from the Upper East Side to like the lower, like West Village type area.
And
at 11:45 at night in New York City. And then like years ago, like not like the cute trendy West Village now. Like I'm sure it was very different when you were doing that walk.
Yeah, clearly.
It's really rough.
It's like what, a 2-hour walk, something like this?
It was about an hour 45. Yeah. I think I got home at like something 1:30. I can't even remember, but I called a friend at that time when I got home, and she picked up her phone, and I'll just never forget this. Another friend who was also rubbing pennies together, and she said, go to sleep. I'll see you in the morning. And she came to my house the next morning, and she had $20 in her hand. And I knew that $20 was really, really challenging for her to share with me. And she said, I want you to use this money. And she said, and I don't want you to pay me back, but I want you to share this with somebody else who's going to need it. That's the only rule.
Wow.
And so began this, and it wasn't that we weren't all doing that at the time, but so began this kind of beautiful journey of seeing the struggle that we're all in, that there's this sheen, there's this like, you know, like in that whole time that I was auditioning, I was needing to show up like I was fabulous, like I felt great, like I was getting enough food and enough rest, and I wasn't walking home for an hour and 45 minutes in the middle of the night. And I call to mind that story for myself all the time, because what happens in those moments is like there's this sense of shame. Like, how could I, you know, be in such a position? But I was in such a position because I was there pursuing my dream, and I was making choices about that, right? I was also making a choice to take care of myself, but that wasn't going to be an immediate payout or payoff. So there I was, kind of leveraging my own safety, trying not to feel bad about that, trying to believe in myself when that was hard to do. And I think I call that story to mind because there are versions of that story all the way along the path.
Yeah.
You know, that's sort of a very tangible version of that story, but I could give you many examples of
Yeah.
moments just like that all the way here.
Yeah, of course.
Was there a time in that moment where you were like, is this worth it? Like, should I even be doing, like, why? Like, I went to Duke, like, I could go get myself a nice job, get a nice apartment. Like, why am I killing myself doing this?
Right. What am I doing? What am I doing?
But
Yes.
is there the passion always stronger than anything
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, like, what brought you back to being like, yeah, no, I'm still gonna do it. It was worth it. The
Yeah,
walk was worth it.
exactly.
It's almost like a little bit of naivety too, right? And I also think naivety is helpful to us as we pursue things. And I knew I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. I could feel that, like I was getting this reinforcement that in doing all of this auditioning, I was doing well. You know, I wasn't getting that instant gratification out of it, but I could feel that I belonged there. And and I'd always felt like I belonged there ever since I was a kid. So I had the reference of having been a young person, and I had history, you know, in feeling what that feels like in my body to be there and have that sense of belonging. And as much as I liked the other work that I was doing, I knew it wasn't where my soul lived. Like it wasn't igniting my soul.
Yeah.
And I always pay attention to that. I pay close attention to whether I feel turned on.
Oh, it's so important to be happy at the end of the day, you know, like money comes and go, but you need to be happy, right?
Exactly.
So after all those cloudy moments, you have the shining one. So what happened? What can you name like one specific moment that changed it all for you? Like one audition, one, I don't know, like one moment, one meeting maybe, or one moment that changed it to be a sunnier life for you?
Like, were you like booking show? Like after all the auditioning, did you finally start booking shows, and that kind of became your work?
Yeah, that was, yeah. And I had been booking prior to that point, but this was sort of leveling. And so I was in kind of a new space, you know, I was sort of in that Broadway space, which I hadn't been in. But that's such an interesting question, Tom, because I'm like, what's the one moment? And
That's a deep question.
Yeah.
question. And I Noah, my son.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
So Noah was,
bring us how Noah happened. Like you're in New York, you're booking, and you know,
and Noah's a pregnancy.
Oh wow.
Dancing in a show, and I'm in like crazy shape, but I'm not gaining any weight. And like suddenly I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm what? I'm pregnant? Like I'm not supposed to be pregnant. I'm supposed to be like the fabulous aunt to my sister's children. You know? And I was far enough along in that pregnancy that it was meaningful. And I remember learning that I was pregnant, and I remember my whole mindset just shifted. And I just went from like this in my career to what do I need to do to take care of this person?
Wow.
That's amazing.
That was a game changer for me. And I think because Noah came, I shifted out of performing. Within 3 years of his birth, I had founded my own production company. I had been assisting directors and choreographers with whom I'd worked. I had started like this foray into producing. I had started taking on properties. By the time Noah was 6 years old, I was producing my first Broadway musical as lead producer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
So
that
Noah was
crazy.
the reason. Yeah. I think Noah's coming into my life allowed me to think even further and to say, okay, my life needs to change. I don't want to be doing 8 shows a week and only, you know, and never be home, you know, and not have any agency. The one thing about being a performer is that really, you know, it's tough work. There's not flexibility in that schedule at all. Right.
Yeah.
It was very meaningful for me when that started to shift, and I was able to think about, okay, what really turns me on about what I do? Rehearsal, process, making the stuff. Okay, I love making the stuff. Making the stuff is way more fun than doing the show every night to me.
Mhm.
It's good
And
to know.
so as I walked it back, I then, started moving forward. And Noah's the reason I became a writer. Noah's the reason I became a
Wow.
producer and a director. It all began with the discovery of Noah. It
You know,
really,
it's
That's
very interesting
crazy.
because most of the mother they have a change in their career when they have their first kid, second, and blah blah blah. But in the slowdown at this moment, you was the totally
Yeah,
opposite. Like,
opposite. You sped up?
yeah, that's very interesting. But it's also something that I notice with when I talk with people that has kids. They all say the same thing that you said. It's like when you have kids, you don't do things for you anymore. You do things for them, and that change your whole life because you're not the priority anymore. They are.
Yeah. But what I think is
exactly.
super beautiful about like what you ended up doing though, Dani, is like you weren't like, hey, I can't be a performer, so I guess I just need to leave this industry. Like you found other beautiful parts of it that you loved just as much, where you were like, I'm not on stage, but I love these other aspects. So how can I be a fantastic mother and be there for my son, but also be like involved in this industry I love and find things in it that I love. So I think it's so fascinating that you were able to be like, okay, I want to stay here, but realistically I can't. How do I make this happen?
Yeah.
And I think that that is just like the coolest part. And I think what's also awesome is the fact that you were booking things and you were obviously connecting with your producers and your directors, and that kind
Yeah,
of helped to push you after, right?
they did. And in fact, it was a man named Pierre Cosette. He was the founder of syndicated television. So when things started being rerun and now we're in the world of streaming, so syndication is a thing, but Pierre was the forerunner on that. And he was a producer of a show I was working on Broadway called The Scarlet Pimpernel way back when.
Mhm.
And I had to go away to do a reading of a new musical called Little Women, and I came back to rehearsal and I happened to say,
Small little musical called Little Women. Like it wasn't like the biggest show. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But the way you said it
I
was
was
like,
doing
like
it,
a show called Little Women,
I
like
was
as
doing
if it
it as
wasn't huge.
I was doing it as an actor. And I was like, "Oh." And I came back from doing that reading and I was like, oh, it's really kind of good. Like, I think, that's sort of interesting. And I started to talk to Pierre, sort of like peripherally around producing. He said to me, he's like, I think you'd be a very good producer. He said,
Wow.
you seem to have stamina. And he said, and frankly, what it takes is, can you get on the phone and talk to lots of people every day and 99% of the time be rejected by them and still get up the very next day and get back at it? And I thought, I think
Wow.
I can do that. I think I can believe in something enough to make it happen. And so that's when I went after Little Women, and I was a dancer going after this huge title with the agents at William Morris and CAA, and they were like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like, what do you want to do? What is it? That's impossible. We're sorry, that's impossible.
Oh
And
my
I just
God.
kept going. I was like, I'm gonna go get this. I'm gonna go get
Yeah.
this show. It took me 2 years to get it. It took me 2 years to get Little Women.
Wow.
And then I was able to like do that. And just, anecdotally to this day, actually next spring, Little Women goes out on another North American tour. It is one of like the biggest titles out there in terms of people who do it regionally and globally. And, it all because I had that conversation with Pierre. He said, go get it.
That's
And you know what?
crazy.
Nobody helped me either, including Pierre,
Mm-hmm.
except to be there as a sounding board. And sort of the theme of my life is that I always kind of enter, you know, sort of on my own, and stuff happens. It's
Yeah.
been an exciting journey that way. And I would say too to both of you, because you're so much younger than I am, there are patterns. We have patterns
Mm-hmm.
in our nature, almost in the way in which we come in and out of things. And certain of those patterns are patterns we want to adjust and we want to fine tune and or break or whatever. But certain of them are ways in which we learn to trust ourselves. Like when I walk into that unknown space, I tell myself, hey, you've been here before a lot.
Yeah.
Almost every single time.
Well,
And
and that's why,
that's
sorry,
important. No, go ahead.
on. No, I was going to say, I was like, I feel like that's kind of why like you attracted so many opportunities to yourself, because you're also just a very confident person, and to be like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna figure it out, and like just they're gonna tell me what they're gonna tell me, and obviously you can see how that like opened up so many doors, because I feel like a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm just a dancer, like, oh, I'm just a background, like nobody's gonna bat an eye at me, and you were like, well, I'm just gonna try it anyway and see where it
Yeah,
gets me,
yeah.
and then produced
It
one of
feels
the biggest Broadway shows ever.
it feels that this peer to start gave you the
Yes.
permission for the rest of your career. And anytime you had like a moment where you were like the beginner, you were like, I did that with another task or another field, so I can do it, you know. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's very good because a lot of people are stuck with that because they don't give themselves the permission to do it.
It's so true, Tom. You know,
Yeah.
we stop ourselves. People stop themselves
Yeah.
all the time. We don't know what we're capable of. And we also, I also feel like we have to be willing to risk failure. We have
Mhm.
to, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of the
And
process.
It
of
is,
course.
it's
And
just part of it.
also, Dani, when you said like it took you like 2 years to
Ooh.
get Little Women, like what exactly do you mean by that? Like how do you, like what do you mean by you got Little Women, and what was your role as like a producer? Like do you come in with money? Do you come in with expertise? Like what would that look like, especially going from your position of like I'm a dancer to like I'm producing a Broadway show? Like there's a lot of a lot of new stuff in that. So like what does that look like?
It looked crazy. It looked crazy. And also it also looked crazy because back then women were not in leadership positions in my industry in great numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never mind, I'm a young woman and I'm talent,
Right.
you know. So that's where I started leaning into like my Duke background. I was like, I'm going to start leading
Mm-hmm.
with this, right? Like as I have take these meetings, and those agents made me take the agents representing the authors, okay, because the
Mhm.
authors had written it and it had won this award and it was, you know, doing, and it was the agents representing the authors that just made me come back and back and back. And then finally, one of the agents who really, really thought I was going to do a good job, he said, you know what? I need you to go get another producer to team with you on this. You need an
Wow.
established producer, and then we're going to give it to you. So then I started going to interview producers. And I was like, okay, so here's what I want to do. And so many people turned me down. So many people turned me down. And because they wanted to just take it from me. And I kept saying, but this is absolutely something I want to do. So I
Mm-hmm.
really want to develop this show. I really want to produce the show. I really want to be responsible for this show. And I finally, after many, many interviews with amazing producers, met my partner who came aboard, Randall Riggett, who's since passed away. And he said yes. And his expertise complemented my expertise. He was in marketing and publicity. He was very successful in that area and had produced some prestigious plays. And then I, of course, had the whole creative piece. And then I brought aboard someone for whom I'd worked, who was the head of touring of all Broadway musicals. And he became our third partner. And that's what made Little Women the success it became, was that really
Wow.
that we were a partnership. And then it was from that point forward that I started to truly understand the power of complementary talents and skills and collaboration and not needing to have all the answers myself and not wanting to. I love teams. As you know, Neha, I just love when we all
Yes.
get together and make stuff happen together. It's just the best to me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so after that, so you start so after this Broadway show, you start your own production company, right?
Started before,
Oh,
yeah.
you started before. All right, sorry. And so how did you get from, so you start your company, you do a Broadway show, to you get an Emmy? Because
Tony. Well, you got your Tony nomination, right? Because of
yeah,
Little Women, right?
it's quite of a like a big jump, right?
It's like a huge jump, right? And
Oh yeah.
I know. And so the best part of all of that, at that time, I really had the great good fortune to, fall in love with somebody who had been very close friends and who eventually became the composer of Little Women, Jason Howland, who is my daughter Nina's dad and my
Mhm.
son Noah's stepfather. And we are, at that time, Jason and I co-founded the production company together.
Oh,
And
okay.
we were also going to start sort of producing our own work and the work of our friends and see what happened. And Jason was a writer at that time. And then something happened where we were developing this piece called Messiah Rocks, and we were talking about the libretto. And I had done lots and lots of writing up to that point. I'd done some songwriting at that point, and I don't even know when that all started, Tom, but somehow I started writing lyrics to songs. We'll do that in another conversation.
She's a woman of all talents.
I
Like,
see that. It's beautiful.
we're like writing pop songs. We're suddenly like out there
Yeah.
writing. Okay. So anyway, so I started writing the libretto, the lyrics for Messiah, and Jason and I collaborated on that. And then eventually became the director for that. And Ken Gentry, who was the person I brought aboard Little Women as the touring producer, then became the producer of Messiah Rocks. And then Sony and PBS came in, and the rest is history. And that was beautiful. And it's still something we're very, very proud of. It was really, really so gorgeous and fun. Great team on that show.
Wow. So
Awesome.
you were kind of in like the thick of then, okay, I'm writing, I'm producing, I'm married, I have two great kids, like I'm being a mom, I'm doing all the things. Was there like a time in that when you were like producing, writing, where you were just like, this is getting out of hand, or like I need a change, or
Yeah.
anything that had, changed your dynamic a little bit?
I think what's interesting about that time is it was all just kind of all happening. And
Mhm.
when life is happening at that pace and you've got a family and you've got the kids' schedule kind of driving everything, there's just not an awful lot of time for self-reflection.
Mhm.
That's just the truth. You're just in
Sure.
it. You're getting up in the morning. You're hitting the ground running. There was a period of life where we literally had 3 babysitters in a day who were doing 8-hour
Wow.
shifts each. So
Wow.
it was it was crazy and wonderful. And we put together this amazing cadre of young actresses who became like our kids' childcare support. And then remarkably, here's a funny story. One of those actresses, Shannon Darren, would like take the kids to and from school, and all of the other parents started asking about our kids' babysitters because our kids would run out of the classroom so happy to see their babysitters because they were going to go do fun things like piano and make art and do
Mhm.
all kinds of things. And so all the other parents started asking, and so Shannon was like, there's a business in here. And then Shannon built a business called Artist Babysitting that's in 4 cities in the United States. And she's got
Awesome.
like, isn't that phenomenal? And
That's
That's beautiful.
incredible.
journal and everything for the growth of her business. And it was because she was with our kids and people were asking. And she thought, yep. And so she built this business And so babysitters would work with kids who were interested in what they did, if they were photographers or visual artists or musicians or actors or whatever. Isn't that wonderful?
That's insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
and also you just have the two most incredible children in the world. Like, to anyone listening, Dani's a phenomenal mother and her kids are great. So
Well, I wasn't always a phenomenal mother.
I mean, I guess you have to learn, right? Especially with the hectic career that you have going on. It's not
I
easy.
mean, well, was there a time where you were like, whoa, I need to, like, what am I doing as a mom? Like,
Oh,
I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, we had I can certainly tell my part of the story, and we had a time in our beautiful family where everything blew up and everything came apart and we utterly fell apart. Like everything that was just so beautiful and marvelous. There was a terrible, terrible thing that happened, and we just came apart.
oh,
And
wow.
it was it was one of those things where, and I learned this at that time, I think, that because I always used to think, oh, I could fix that, I could fix that thing, I can fix that thing, I can fix that thing. And what I learned in that time is once something happens, the only thing we can do is react to it with as much grace and care as we possibly can and just keep everybody alive as you go. But once the things happen, and there's not going to be anything you can do to
Yeah.
stop a thing from happening. So that was an excellent lesson. So now, as things go wrong or happen or don't go in the way I want them to go or hope they'll go, or I just acknowledge that the thing has happened and that here is a moment for me to bring my best self as best I can to it
Yeah.
and see what I can do to get us all through.
Mhm.
We had a situation where literally all the wheels came off our family wagon and then over a few years period came back on in a completely different way than one would ever have imagined. And I am incredibly grateful for all of the people who came to our aid around that time, all of the people who were our allies. And I'm impressed beyond imagining by my kids and how they held up during this time and the young adults that they are now, and the
Mhm.
resilience in them is palpable. And I think, Neha, when you say, oh my gosh, they're amazing people, they really are.
They are
They've been
fantastic.
through it though. They
Oh,
have been
yeah.
through like
But they're
serious
wise
stuff.
beyond their
They are
years. Like
wise.
I mean, I know Noah's my age, but I mean, even when I had first met him, I was like, whoa, he is. And even Nina, like, is so like they're both just very intelligent, very composed, but so wise beyond their years. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
they're amazing.
they're incredible.
I'm so proud of them. And I'm also just thrilled to have a window on their lives as young adults as well, to just watch them come into the world and watch them make their own choices and just make their decisions and learn about who they are as humans and their capacity. It's
Hmm.
so exciting to witness our young people in that space. I'm thrilled
Yeah,
with them. I'm just
yeah,
so happy to have a front row seat. I
of
really am.
course.
That's
So,
awesome. And I have another question. Would it be like, was it hard for you as a woman in this industry to perform, would I say to succeed, or it was more okay because I would feel, on my personal opinion, that this industry is more open than the corporate job, that we have in America?
Mhm. It's a very difficult industry to be a woman in. Very difficult.
Okay.
It's really a male driven industry.
mhm.
The entertainment industry is terribly difficult for women. And I think it's better. I mean, it's always been very important to me, as Neha knows, to mentor women. To
Mhm.
If there's a woman I see out there wanting to make it happen, I'm gonna do what I can to, help her on the path. That matters a lot to me.
Yeah.
And because it's a tough industry. But you know what, Tom? I think every industry, to your point, is
Mhm.
it's tough. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. I because women women are also, we're living our lives in chapters, if you will. And there are times when we have children and we necessarily have to like go in and cocoon, even if it's for a few months or if it's a few
Mhm.
years, if that's the choice or whatever. But we kind of go in and out, you know? And
Yeah.
perhaps why I became entrepreneurial was that I felt like I could have agency over that in and out. And when I came back in, I could come back in with a kind of momentum and I could drive, right? I could
Yeah.
drive that path. Whereas I think in other industries, if women come out or they don't have their own business or whatever, if they come out, they got to come back in and then they have to kind of, and they don't get that same momentum as their male peers who can just stay
That's
in.
true. That's very true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And also, I feel guys are less emotive about things in life, so we just go no matter what because we're like that. I mean, obviously, everybody are different, right? But most of like, I feel girls are really more emotive and they are more careful about what people think about them, what the family think about them, and so sometimes what we say earlier, they don't give themselves the permission to do and to accomplish stuff. So it's very interesting to have your point of view on that.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I think it's not the men necessarily trying to keep us down or out. I don't that's not been my experience, my
Hmm.
personal experience, but my personal experience has been when I am in the role of mother,
Yeah.
right? That matters to me more than anything else I do. And
Mhm.
I will put that above everything else I do. And I know I'm not alone in that as well as a woman. And so that will, like I say, then I'm coming out, I'm going back in. I'm coming out, I'm going back in. And that makes for a different way of being in business and from and momentum and certainly one's earning capacity.
Yeah.
Of course.
And
That's the tough part too.
yeah, well, I mean, I guess speaking of women in business, so we'll kind of pivot a little bit to now how I guess so you're producing, you're doing, Broadway and all of this, but then you started a little TV show. So
Right.
where did that come from and how did that even and get started and why
And,
even a TV show?
and also, like for some people that are hearing us, and listening to us, you might have understand that Danny and Neha know each other. So I want to know the full story of that
Yeah.
because I know the story, but I want to know, and everybody wants to know, I guess, at this point.
It's such a good story. So, one of my young friends, a classmate of my son Noah, a young girl named Julia Collins, who I believe should and will be president of the United States someday. But Julia really felt like she had grown up in New York City with lots and lots of privilege. And what she means by privilege is access to great opportunities for internships and you could go talk to your father or mother's peer in this industry and learn about whether or not you want to work in that industry. And Julia understood that there was this huge inequity for young women everywhere else. She was like,
Mhm.
what can we do to give other girls my age, she was a teenager at the time, the same access that I have to mentorship, right? So that they can
Mhm.
start businesses, so that they
Mhm.
can feel like. And so we started and we did this summer project. I was like, let's make it a summer project. I'll be your mentor in the project and you figure out what you think it needs to be. And she came up with this idea that it was going to be this company and we were going to drive it with a reality television show. And it was from that point that we began. Because I thought, okay, if Julia she's courageous and brave enough to do this, we're going to go do this. Let's go
Yeah.
do this, right? Let's go
Mhm.
make that happen. And so her folks were in the publishing and media industry in advertising. And so they had all of these corporate contacts. And so we brought all of these incredible corporations to bear on it. And Al Roker's production company came to join us. And then the folks at Discovery thought it was a neat idea. And then all of a sudden, there we were auditioning for the girl starters, for the young women. And that is how I met Neha. And it was really exciting. And we developed our own entrepreneurship process. It's a six-step process for building a business and iterating. And it's something we're very proud of. It felt like a detour, obviously, from live theater. For me, it didn't feel like a detour as a human being, because empowering women is what I'm all about. So for me, it just felt like yet another awesome opportunity to do that on a larger scale. Right.
Yeah.
And
that's
what I also think, because I also know this story, obviously, because we've spoken over the years about this, but I think what's so super cool is I feel like at the time Girl Starter had happened, you know, you're quite established in your industry, but I don't know if you want to like share that story of like, you know, a certain major media corporation where you were kind of pitching this idea to Girl Starter when you were trying to get on a network, and, you know, just having multiple networks just kind of be like, who's going to watch this?
Who wants to watch girls getting along with each other and building things? Nobody.
No, we want to see them throw shit. Like,
throw shit at each other and be catty and where are the men in your show? You know, we would hear that all the time. Where are the men? Why are there no guys? Like, we need guys in the show. I was like,
the name is obvious.
Yeah. It's called Girl Starter.
Yeah.
Starter. Yeah. And so we worked we got rejected by every network. The networks were like, no, you know, that's just not interesting to us. We don't care really about girls get moving forward. That doesn't matter to us. And so we just had to stay with, again, you know, back to the Little Women thing, taking 2 years. Girl Sorter took like 4 years from inception to realization. You know, these are not things that happen overnight, and they don't happen without a lot of people just saying, no, thank you. That's a terrible idea. We're not going to do that. You know, good luck to you.
And why deep down you continue to pitch that? Because, you know, a lot of people after like 5 no's, they are, okay, maybe it's not a good idea. How deep down you knew it was one of the best ideas, especially then after that, like I'm pretty sure you're still in contact and in touch with all the girls that were part of the show, and they build amazing thing, right? So
my gosh, they're amazing. They're incredible, as you know, Tom.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, these young women are amazing and testament to why we wanted to do it in the first place, because they're just so powerful and so dynamic. And that idea that if a young woman, wherever she is, has an idea and she believes she can make it happen, she can make it happen. She can make it happen.
Yeah.
And that matters. You know, all the way back to my coming from Massachusetts and being the child of 2 teachers and growing up in a very small town. I, you know, everything that happened, I just walked in not knowing anyone or anything. And I think that we need to empower people, not just girls, but people, to know that their innovative brains, their creativity, their calls to their passions, that's what we need. We need more of that. And the world wants that. And, you know, and try not to be afraid of failure, because you will fail a lot. Fail a lot. I have failed probably 100 more times than I've been successful.
Yeah.
Right?
That's how you became successful.
Exactly. Those were your little lessons in between of getting you to like where you are. And I think that like kind of that beginning story of you always like pushing, I feel like even when you were like pitching with Girl Starter, a lot of people in your position at that time could easily have been like, hey, well, I'm pretty established in this field, and you know, if people don't care for it, like it's probably not worth it. You know, I feel like that, like if I was in that position, like, you know, some people would be like, hey, you know, I feel like I know enough. And if we're getting this many people that we know through connections and just being established, and they're like, yeah, I don't buy it, to be like, yeah, it's probably not worth it, but you still had that like perseverance, that energy that you had since you were, young and in your 20s, and like that still pushed through for you to be like, no, we're gonna make this happen. There's a lot of value in this. And you did, and you got it done. That's how I came along.
That's how Neha's here. But I will say, Neha, I think it was with that project that on the other side of that one, I did take a step back and I thought, okay, just because you can push and you can stay with something, you're a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
Is that your best practice moving forward? Or can you now find another way to do the work you love to do? So I had some really big talks with myself about that. And
Yeah.
I've shifted like how I make things happen. And I don't push anymore at all. Now
Yeah.
I'm in a totally different place. Also because I know myself very well and I don't feel like I have to push anymore. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I have to prove anything anymore. I've come, the benefit of experiences,
Yeah.
experience and, and a track record. And so I do recall on the other side of that with all of our learning on that show,
Mm-hmm.
right, all together,
Yeah.
that I thought, okay, I'm gonna try something else.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
On,
And
oh wait, just
oh,
real
you,
quick. Oh no, wait, real quick. While we're still on this, I'm like, as like a little like T part, would you call like the TV show like a success or a failure in terms of like, yeah, I don't know. You can take that as you will, but I'll let you answer that.
I feel like the way we built the business plan was a success.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the way it was marketed was a failure. We didn't
Yeah.
get the right. It
Oh
was,
yeah.
I feel like I feel like that was a really big blind spot for me in moving into television,
Mm-hmm.
and wish I had potentially brought somebody to our team that would have truly understood how to navigate that aspect of it. It would have been worth it to really dig in and find someone expert and
Mm-hmm.
pay that person. So these are learnings too, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like we built something so beautiful that then didn't get legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get the thing it deserved. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there was a ton of potential. Like the message was beautiful. I think the lessons that people could learn were great. And there was a lot of value added. Just unfortunately, most people didn't know it existed.
No, didn't know. And so
that's
that
true.
was part of the learning too. Like part of why, okay, you pushed and pushed and pushed, right?
Mhm.
And you made this thing happen. And there was a real gap.
Yeah.
Remember, like all the way back to Little Women, there wasn't a gap in that team, which was also what helped make it successful. I really believe in building that
Mhm.
team and all these people bringing their genius to it, right? And
Yeah.
I would say that was one thing on Girl Starter that we were missing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to have like the vision of what you have after everything you do, and understand that even if we'll say on the numbers it was not a success that you predicted, it was still a huge success for you because you put the foundation of something good. And sometimes I'm a lot into marketing, so I know that sometimes product are launched but they are too early for the market. And I would think that this show, for example, with Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all the platform like this being what they are now, would be perfect fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I know. I've thought of that so many times, exactly. And so yeah, this timing is always important. A little bit of luck is important too,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
But
like
it's very
positioning
interesting.
yourself in an optimal location to be, you know, getting the right type of demographic and the
That's
right
it.
viewers and the right type of engagement, because obviously our show was catered to like a very hopefully a particular demographic, which would then engage in social media and kind of be able to really, really, get it going in that sense. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you need a good distribution and a good marketing, but that's another story, I guess.
That's so important.
Among everything you achieved, because it's very long, and that's
and
good.
still going.
And it's still going, of course. What are you the most proud of? Like, what is your biggest win for you?
Mm,
Can be personal, can be professional. Like,
mm.
what is your biggest win in your life?
I think it's a combination of personal and professional, and I think that when the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I had just started saying yes to directing live theater around the country because Nina my youngest, was a senior in high school at that time. And I thought, okay, I can start to branch out and go away places for 8 and 10 weeks. I won't need to be at home in New York City. And so I'd taken several jobs for that year, for 2020 into 2021. And then live theater shut down in March of 2020. And every single one of those jobs disappeared within just a few weeks.
Oh my God.
And the same was true for Nina's dad, Jason. We were just, up the creek without a paddle and not knowing what was going to happen, how long this was going to be, how we were going to do college for Nina, what were our, and Nina was dealing with her own grief around high school suddenly getting shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So we came up here to the Cape, and I just remember thinking a lot about, okay, everybody's out of work. And I went back to Girl Starter in my head. I was like, I produced some television and I know a little bit now about production and and I have all of these amazing Broadway friends and they know a little bit about production too, and they're great writers, and I bet we could do something. So then I started reaching out to the corporations and organizations, that we had sort of worked with in and around Girl Starter, and then even beyond that. I'd served on boards of various organizations. I started reaching out and I said, look, I have a team of people who can create for your organization an online event or a series of masterclasses or anything. And the production value will be incredible. And we'll have dancing and we'll have music and it'll be original. And the company is called Everyday Dreams. And I just founded this new company and started putting people to work.
Awesome.
That's what happened. And I realized then, it was only then, and it's very late in my life, to be reminded that I've got this. No matter how dark it gets, no matter how challenging, no matter how high that mountain or steep that learning curve, I've got this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that moment of quiet. And I suddenly just felt super peaceful. And I think that that's a reinforcement piece now. I don't push at anything.
Yeah.
I feel like if something comes my way, I know I can check in and I can say, do I want to do this? And
I have a question. I really feel you never take no as an answer. Every time you have a difficulty, you're like, okay, I do it different way, or I'll do it no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. It's very inspiring because you never take no as an answer. And, like, it's not a possibility for you, and it's I think it's one of the best message you can give. It's why no? Why?
And I love also just your perseverance throughout every single thing. It's like you had, okay, like we had issues with like Broadway, then we had issues with this TV show, and then the TV show wasn't the success that we wanted it to. And then, okay, I'm going to go back to directing. Oh, great. There's a literal pandemic happening throughout the world. Great. My income is gone for the next year and a half or like for the foreseeable future. So the fact that you're able to then still come back and be like, well, great, now my income is gone. What do I do now? Okay, I'll start another business.
I love that. That's crazy.
Phenomenal to be like, most people would be like, well, life sucks, and you know what, I guess I just need to, this wasn't meant for me, or maybe this is the universe's way of being like, you need to stop, like, everything was taken away from me. But you're able to be like, no, like, there's ways to go about this and to handle the current climate we're in, and I'm going to do something kick-ass. And you did.
Again, necessity is the mother of invention, right? I mean, when that was the thing, when I found out I was pregnant with Noah, I was like, okay, I got to do something different here. And then that pandemic happened, and I was like, okay, we got to do something different here. And I think it's not even, I think back to not even taking no for an answer. It doesn't occur to me that there's a no. It occurs to me that I have to do something, which that's and I don't know, I guess you could walk it all the way back to childhood, and maybe I needed somebody to take better care of me. That's not true. My parents are awesome, but my parents also always told me that it was my life to make, my responsibility, nobody else's.
Yeah.
And that is real. That's true. And you have agency. We have agency. If we think we are powerless, we need to sit with ourselves and check in and find out what's making us think that way and change that.
Yeah.
We are always, always empowered to take a step, whether it's a small step, a big step. We are always empowered to take a step.
Yeah. And I love that you also preach that amongst other people. Like, I love that you're like, hey, I learned these lessons. If you want to do that, come. Like, I'm gonna hold your hand. I'm gonna make sure you don't make the same mistakes, and I'm gonna be there. Like, and I know I've had the privilege of you being a mentor to me, and there have been so many times where we're like, Dani, like, what do I do? And you've always been like, okay, we're gonna, here, I think we should do this. Like, why don't you, take a breath? When I was living in New York, you'd be like, come on over, we'll like figure this out together. And I love that so much about your attitude. It's just like, you're always, growing and achieving, but you're always also just so like invested in just like bettering the next generation and others around you. And I think that is just such a like you're an all around like phenomenal person. Like, not only are you just like so brilliant and successful, but like you're trying to make the world a better place for, everyone around you too. So I think that's, just who you are as a character. And that's awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And among all those crazy stuff that you've been doing, you are doing, what are your next big goals, big dreams that you wish for your life?
So what I don't know if you know this thing that Oprah talks about, which is lining up desire and intention.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. I think I've got my intention lined up. I think I understand, that I want my energy to be of its greatest impact in the world. I want to make sure I'm being very generous with myself, with my knowledge, with my, just my whole spirit. And now what I'm trying to figure out is this desire piece. Like, what do I want that lines up with that intention? What's the work? What's the life? But I have to say, I'm doing things that I just love right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm really loving my work. I'm really loving my life with my kids and my friends. And I mean, my days are extremely creative. Right now, I am directing a show that will be coming back to off Broadway called Cindy of Arc. And Cindy of Arc is traveling around the country raising money for reproductive justice organizations. And we're opening the 50th anniversary at the Theater in Seattle in
Mm-hmm.
November. And super excited about that. I love that play so much. It's so smart. And it's
Mm-hmm.
about, that it's so funny. And it's the thousands of years of patriarchy going all the way back to God and how it's been so difficult for all of us. Hence, Girl Starter, everything, my whole life. So being able to be the director of Cindy of Arc is outstanding to me. And we've been developing that play for about 5 years. I am directing the unauthorized musical parody of Jaws at the White Lotus. And so we opened in Provincetown and then in Fire Island, and now we're going to Puerto Vallarta. So it is so crazy and so funny and silly. And I love funny things. I love to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm executive producing the new Shrek tour. And I had the opportunity to work on Shrek a long time ago. So I'm back with those wonderful writers and creatives on that. And and I get to still do our work with Everyday Dreams. We keep going so that, no matter what's going on in the live space, there's work. So we do gorgeous work with a company called Sounds True and do beautiful content for them and for Tom and Lisa Billiou, who have a company called Impact Theory. And, it's just kind of an embarrassment of riches. It's a very beautiful, rich, gorgeous life.
That's
But
amazing.
you created it. Like you did that. You did the damn thing,
That's right. I did the damn thing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
It took a while to get to this place where I can sit with you and say, it's really beautiful. It's always been beautiful. That's the truth, as difficult as it's been. But now this kind of wild, wonderful awareness of, sort of how one experience does actually lead us to another, and how it's sort of the culmination of all of those experiences that bring us to a new place of wisdom. And I feel like, I'm embarking on this next chapter and I'm empty nested now.
Yeah.
And it be back to women having lives and chapters, Tom. Guess what? This chapter rocks, because not only do we have these incredible human beings that we've had the privilege of parenting, right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, but we also have this kind of freedom, and we have our personal experience and our professional experience that's all kind of come together to make this moment. And we still have all our creativity and all our energy and lots to still give into the world. So this chapter, as an older woman, is just super exciting.
Of course.
It's really cool. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll keep you posted.
Yeah,
Of
you
course.
gotta. We need to keep updated. We might be able to do like a part 2 to this part to the podcast and be like, Daniel,
Yeah.
back at it again.
I feel there's so much that we need to cover, but just to wrap up, because it's already more than an hour of talking, and it's amazing. We could go on maybe for 3 hours, I guess. What would be the main the main quality that people should get in order to succeed for you?
Know that you can do it. Know that there are people out there with whom you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And just don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid of failure. It's going to happen. It happens to every single human being. And if you have those dark moments, call a friend, and, just know that there are people there for you. You're not alone. We're not alone. We're not alone.
That's I 100% agree with you. It's amazing, and it's so true. It's the type of advice that are so simple but so true.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the hardest thing to do is the easiest. So,
Yeah.
Neha, do you have something else to conclude?
No, I was gonna say, like, also I feel like this is Tom's first moment being like captivated by Dani, because I'm like, I could listen to Dani talk for hours and hours
Oh,
and
me too. Trust me.
so like she's like a true, like, she's just a light in my life. And so I mean, I think you just have like such a great outlook on life, and just, you know, you're gonna
Feel the
keep
same way
going.
about you. I know it about you. I mean, you have your, you know, your own challenges, and
Mhm.
you're amazing and powerful and resilient, and that beautiful spirit in you to always see forward is just, that's the gift, Neha. That's it. That's
Oh,
it.
thank you.
That's it.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
that's
Mm.
beautiful.
Thank
But
you both for having me.
Thank you
of
so
course,
much for coming and for being the first guest. And
yes,
I
thank
hope you
you
could
so
come back
much.
very, very soon because we have a lot to talk about. It's very, very interesting, but I don't want to take much more of your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Neha. You guys are beautiful. I
Thank
can't wait
you,
to see you in person.
Dani. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.